Annyeonghaseyo. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Marjorie Lara from the Philippines. First, I would like to thank Professor Hewan Lee and Professor Nam Jun Cho for the gracious invitation to be part of this forum. It is an honor to be able to share with you about my experiences as a PhD student in South Korea and about my current research. I am currently working in the University of the Philippines-Diliman as a faculty member of the Department of Chemical Engineering under the Environmental Process Engineering Laboratory. In 2011, I had the opportunity to learn about the Korean culture firsthand when I was accepted as an intern for 3 months in the Nanomaterials for Energy Conversion Laboratory, or NECL, under Professor Won Bae Kim of the Department of Material Science and Engineering at Gwangju Institute of Science and Technology. With the guidance of Professor Kim and the graduate students in the lab, I was able to conduct some experiments in the synthesis of catalysts for fuel cell applications. So 4 years later, I decided to do my PhD, and I was fortunate to have been accepted in the School of Chemical Engineering at Yongnam University in Gyeongsang City. Although we were required to take some Korean language courses, the academic courses that I took in Yongnam University are mostly in English, except for the online course on research ethics. I obtained my PhD just last year under the Nano Energy Materials and Processes Laboratory, or Nano EMPL, under the supervision of Professor Jejin Shim. Our lab studies nanostructured materials and devices for energy storage, photocatalysis, and biosensing applications. The lab has also been working on clean technology, thermodynamics, and separation processes. So what's interesting about our lab is that it consists mostly of international graduate students, research professors, and postdocs from Philippines, Egypt, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Vietnam, and China, among others. Every weekend, we would present to the lab our research output for the week, where our professor and the other members of the lab would give comments and suggestions for the improvement of our research. And the postdocs and research professors help the professor in supervising the graduate students in terms of our research output. And during my stay in the lab in South Korea, I was appointed lab head by our professor. So it was a very challenging and meaningful experience to lead a group of researchers and students who come from different cultures all over the world. But I'm very grateful for the learnings from this experience, and also from the learnings I got from being a teaching assistant in the chemical engineering lab courses for the Korean undergraduate students. As an international student, I studied in Yongnam University with free tuition, the Brain Korea, or BK 21 Plus Scholarship, and the Engineering Research and Development for Technology, or ERDT, Faculty Fellowship from the Philippines provided me with a stipend. And for the research funding, our laboratory gets support from the Clean Energy Priority Research Center, or CEPRC, and the Institute of Clean Technology, or ICT, and also from projects approved by the Yongnam University Link, and of course, the National Research Foundation of Korea. Likewise, the BK program supported my participation in research conferences in and outside of Korea. I'm very grateful to have been able to participate in research conferences organized by the Korean Institute of Chemical Engineers, the Korean Society of Clean Technology, and Nano Korea, among others. The CEPRC and ICT hold domestic and international symposia and research workshops annually. These symposia and workshops allowed me to disseminate my research to the public and at the same time learn about the current research trends on material synthesis for various applications from invited speakers from South Korea and abroad, and from my fellow graduate students. Now, let me share with you some of our recent lab publications. So since 2008, the Nano EMPL has been working on the synthesis of nanocomposites using solvents including water, ionic liquids, and supercritical carbon dioxide. These nanocomposites consist of combinations of carbon nanotubes, graphene, and metal oxides, nanoparticles, and polymers. The as-prepared products are investigated for different applications such as sensors, antibacterial materials, and photocatalysts. Although our laboratory has more publications on supercapacitors, I would like to briefly share about sensors and catalysts because of their environmental applications. Electrochemical and electrocatalytic sensor devices can provide specific quantitative and semi-quantitative information about the analyte molecules through a transducer. In our research group, we have successfully developed various types of electrode materials, such as electrochemically reduced graphene oxide composites and redox-active polymer, metal oxide, and metal sulfide modified electrodes for chemical, environmental pollutant, and bioactive molecule sensing. The detection of L-cysteine, for instance, as shown in the third paper on this slide, is important because of its role in the human body as a semi-essential amino acid with numerous health benefits. Copper 2 plus, 1,10-phenanthroline 5,6-dione, a bidentate chelating ligand, was deposited on electrochemically reduced graphene oxide on glassy carbon electrode to detect L-cysteine. So this was published in 2019 in Sensors and Actuators B. Most of the materials we use for sensing in the lab are based on graphene or graphene oxide because of the facile, stable, and extensive application of the surface functionalization of these graphene-based materials. So the last paper on this slide focuses on the sensitive and selective determination of nitrite in water in the presence of interference using a composite of polydiaminobenzene and reduced graphene oxide on glassy carbon electrode. In the first study listed on this slide, an eco-friendly method for the modification of electrochemically reduced graphene oxide on glassy carbon surface with electrochemically polymerized T5-diamino-1,2,4-triazole was developed for the detection of 4-nitrophenol. So although 4-nitrophenol is an important industrial chemical, it is also listed by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency among the top 114 organic pollutants in water. So when ingested, this compound can cause damage to the liver, central nervous system, kidneys, and blood. So in farming and crop cultivation, 4-nitrophenol is released as a byproduct of the hydrolysis of the pesticide parathion in aquatic environments. Hence, the detection and measurement of the concentration of this compound in the environment and even in the food products is really important. So at this point, I would like to introduce to you some of our recent works on nanocomposites for the catalytic and photocatalytic degradation of organic pollutants in water. In the second paper on this slide, we synthesized a 3D heterostructure of gamma manganese dioxide, zinc ferrite, and reduced graphene oxide for the activation of peroxymonosulfate to produce sulfate radicals for the degradation of phenol. The synergistic effects of the combined materials resulted in high degradation rates of phenol using low catalyst dosage. In the third paper, we synthesized zinc ferrite and graphene nanocomposites using an eco-friendly hydrothermal method. The method resulted in a mesoporous structure with high surface area, which is good for catalysis and photocatalysis. The samples for this study were used to degrade methylene blue and rhodamine B as representative dipollutants in water under simulated solar light irradiation. In the last study, we focused on the effects of varying the solvents in the synthesis of zinc oxide and graphene nanocomposites. The use of pure water, pure ethanol, and their combination resulted in 3 different kinds of zinc oxide morphologies, which in turn yielded different results in terms of degrading dyes under solar irradiation. After coming back to the University of the Philippines, I am now working on the synthesis of nanocomposites that are based on carbon materials, considering the abundance of biomass in the country. So briefly, I would like to share about my current research. So the catalytic and photocatalytic degradation of organic pollutants that I introduced earlier can be classified under advanced oxidation processes or AOPs. So these AOPs are highly efficient novel methods that accelerate the oxidation and the degradation of a wide range of organic and inorganic substances that are resistant to conventional treatment methods. So AOPs produce in situ transitory species, mainly hydroxyl radicals, and later on sulfate radicals, which aid in the degradation process until the target pollutant species are completely converted to carbon dioxide, water, and mineral acids if the pollutants contain halogens. So the primary application of these processes is the destruction of organic or inorganic contaminants in water and wastewater. The radicals, which are powerful oxidizing agents, are expected to sufficiently destroy wastewater pollutants and transform them to less and even non-toxic products, thereby providing an ultimate solution for wastewater treatment. These radicals are formed using a less reactive primary oxidant and have a very high standard reduction potential, and hence they are able to oxidize a large number of organic compounds in water, yielding very low concentrations of these compounds in water. Sulfate radicals are considered more stable than hydrogen peroxide and hydroxyl radicals owing to their high redox potential. So for sulfate radical-based AOPs, cobalt ions are considered the most efficient in terms of activating peroxymonosulfate. This PMS is considered an environment-friendly and expensive oxidant because of its selectivity, easy handling during storage and transportation, and there is no need for pH adjustment when this material is used. However, when we are using cobalt ions, issues of leaching and non-recyclability hamper the use of these ions. So these ions are considered carcinogenic. So proposed solutions include the development of recoverable materials that can reduce metal leaching and sustain high activity in the heterogeneous activation of PMS. So with this in mind, my current lab is focusing on finding biochar-based materials as catalyst and as catalyst support, taking into consideration the fact that Philippines has abundant biomass. So aside from my academic and research activities in South Korea, I am grateful for the opportunity to meet other women scientists and engineers through the meetings organized by the Association of Korean Women Scientists and Engineers. I also made friends with other Filipino scholars in Korea as a member of the Pinoy Scholars sa Korea or PICO. And another engagement that I really found meaningful and fruitful during my stay in South Korea is being a volunteer in the Daegu Filipino Community Council and the Catholic Workers Center. So these extracurricular activities supplemented my academic and research activities to ensure a holistic learning experience during my stay in South Korea. So In conclusion, studying in South Korea provided me access to world-class research facilities and mentors, and having an international setting provided me with an opportunity to work with fellow students and postdocs with a diverse academic and cultural background, giving me a network that spans the world. So with this, I end my presentation. So kamsahamnida. Thank you.
감사합니다. Thank you very much. Thank you very much again. Yes. Let's move on to next speaker from Cambodia.